Hello, Legend of the Samurai here with a rather unusual Japanese lock, the Miwa LB. These are incredibly difficult to find, and this one was graciously loaned to me by Artichoke 2000, so thanks for that. As for the lock itself, this is a false-gated slider lock. It has 13 sliders that interact with 2 sidebars, and how they do that gives it another interesting feature in that it is rekeyable. So I will attempt to get this open, and then I can show at least part of the mechanism, because this is a complicated little lock. So, I'm tensioning just from the middle of the keyway, and then I have a very stout flag made from an ejector pin that lets me put a lot of force into moving things around if they need to. So, here goes, and this might take a while, because being a false-gated slider from Miwa, I'll be chasing some things around. I'll also be checking progress pretty frequently with an otoscope, just to make sure things are where I think they are supposed to be. Alright, I think that's where I want things. I have to get things out of false gates, otherwise once I go to the other side I will never be able to get them again. should be just a couple of sliders left, but they're the most difficult ones to set. Should just be one left. There we go. Okay, so this is quite a difficult lock to pick, even though this one is technically mastered, although not probably in the way you expect. First, this is as far as the plug goes, and there's a very good reason for that. In fact, it's even limited on the back here. That little notch right there runs into a retaining ring such that it cannot go to 180 degrees unless you are using a special key which is longer than the normal key, which can push this little movable element up, which disengages the tailpiece from the actual plug, and it lets it travel further. Now, what that does is it allows you to get from one side of this front plate to the other side, which has a ramp. And that ramp interacts with this little notch right here. And so if you have a key and you come in like so, the whole thing can push out forwards. And we have two sidebars, which I will have to take out. So here's our first one. And it has two springs. And then here is our second one. And it also has two little springs. And now we can see in the sidebar grooves, so this is the bottom of the lock. And as I take the key in and out, you can see that there are 13 elements moving there. So all of those bottom side sliders interact with the bottom sidebar. And then this top side, there are 12 elements. So I had initially thought that, so this is 2 rows of sliders, left and right. I figured one went to one sidebar, the other side went to the other sidebar, but that is not the case. All of them interact with both sidebars. And the reason for that is there are 2 carriages here that are shifted, or that can be shifted, rather. So if you have a key in the lock, you can shift this carriage back, and now all of the top sliders are decoupled from the bottom sliders. So I can bring the key in and out. It also decouples them from the springs. So I can now take the key in and out, and these top sliders will not move. And what that lets you do is rekey the lock. So if you use one of the longer rekeying keys that has an extra tip, you put that in, turn the plug 180 degrees, take it out, put another one in, and then as you turn it back, the carriage shifts forwards again, and it has been recoupled. And so the way this has to work, because all of them interact with both sidebars, and these can't ever be decoupled, a bunch of these lower sliders are quite heavily mastered. And although it would take many graphics and a rather long explanation to go through completely how this works, here we have our upper and lower sliders. Anything that is a letter has more than one true gate. So 1 through 4 just have one gate. Everything else has more than one true gate. But the way this works is that the true gates on the bottom have to line up with true gates on the top. So you can end up with a slider pair where there are 3 true gates on the bottom and 3 true gates on the top, and only one of them lines up. And so the other 2 true gates on both of these turn into false gates in terms of picking. And so that can give you some very, very confusing feedback, because it can feel like you are in a true gate, because you are just on the wrong sidebar and you're being blocked by the other sidebar. So this has 13 total sliders. Key space is somewhere around 33.5 million. Based on just the lower slider mastering, this lock could be rekeyed to just under 3,000 different keys. And that is only governed by the bottom slider. The top slider mastering allows for mastering differs, so 32 keys could open this lock. But interestingly, the way this functions, so a number 1 cut is the highest, so that's one of these. A number 4 cut is the lowest, right here. And so as you move sliders in, you're going from the higher numbers to lower numbers. And so the key bitting is here, and the possible bittings I have here, the first one that you hit will always be whatever key you set it to, because anytime you shift that carriage back, it automatically resets to the first gate on the top sliders. So even if these are mastered, you'll be picking to the first set of true gates on the upper sliders, and all of the additional true gates up there will trap oversets, and never let them go. Basically, if you overset anything in this lock, you're starting over. There are also false gates on a number of these. Numbers 1 through 4, G, K, and N also have half-depth false gates. So these are not trivial to pick. They are very much not trivial to take apart. I've had this one fully apart once. They are not designed to come apart. I do not recommend that you take them apart further than this. This back cap can come off, but these 2 crimps up at the front cannot be undone, and prying these 2 carriages apart and getting them back together and functioning took about 4 hours worth of work. So I would not recommend doing that unless you have a free afternoon and really want to see the internals here. All right, so that has been the Miwa LB picked and gutted. We'll get this back together and back to Artichoke 2000, and I do believe that he is planning on making a much more in-depth video showing how all of this works. All right, thank you for watching, and have a nice day.